The unseen room. I had always prided myself on being a rational person, never one to indulge in superstitions or ghost stories. That was until the day my daughter, Lily, received an antique dollhouse from her grandmother. It was a spitting image of our Victorian home, crafted with an eerie attention to detail. Each miniature furniture piece, the wallpaper, even the family portraits were replicas of our own. The dollhouse became Lily's obsession. She spent hours arranging and rearranging the tiny rooms, whispering stories to her dolls. I found it endearing until I noticed something peculiar. There was an extra room in the dollhouse, one that didn't exist in our home. It was a plain, unadorned space, save for the small figures seated around a table, mirroring our family. I tried to dismiss it as a quirk of the toy, but the room unnerved me. It felt like a silent challenge, a puzzle meant for me to solve. As days passed, the figures' positions changed, always when we weren't looking. They moved with purpose, enacting scenes of daily life with disturbing accuracy. One evening, as I passed by the dollhouse, I heard faint whispers emanating from the tiny room. I leaned in, straining to listen, and the voices stopped abruptly, replaced by a cold draft that made the hairs on my neck stand. The figures were all turned, their painted eyes fixed on me, expressions blank yet somehow accusatory. I decided to investigate the anomaly, searching our home for any sign of hidden spaces. My efforts were fruitless, yet the sensation of being watched grew stronger. Lily began to speak of dreams where she played in a room just like the one in the dollhouse, with her silent, miniature family. The line between reality and imagination blurred as I found myself drawn to the dollhouse at odd hours, compelled to observe the figures. They were no longer just toys, they held secrets, a story that was unfolding parallel to ours. And I feared what it might mean for my family. The dollhouse consumed my thoughts. I researched its origins, tracing it back to a reclusive artist named Evelyn Hartwood. She had vanished decades ago, leaving behind a legacy of eerie miniatures. The dollhouse was her masterpiece, and it seemed to harbor a dark secret. Lily's behavior changed too. She spoke less, her eyes distant as if she communed with unseen forces. She'd sit cross-legged in front of the dollhouse, whispering to the figures. I watched, torn between fascination and dread. The room within the dollhouse grew more elaborate. The tiny family now had a miniature fireplace, a clock that ticked in sync with ours, and a door that led to nowhere. One night, unable to resist, I entered Lily's room. The dollhouse glowed, its windows casting eerie shadows. The figures were arranged in a circle, hands clasped. Their painted eyes bore into mine. I felt their silent plea, "Join us." I hesitated, then placed my finger on the table. The room shifted, and I was inside. The air smelled of old wood and forgotten memories. The figures stood around me, their expressions shifting from blankness to anticipation. Lily sat at the head of the table, her eyes wide. "Daddy," she whispered, "we've been waiting for you." I tried to speak, but my voice failed. The room pulsed, and I glimpsed our real home through the window, a distorted reflection. The figures were more than toys, they were conduits, bridging our world and theirs. I understood their purpose, to mirror our lives, absorb our emotions, and feed off our energy. Lily's eyes held knowledge beyond her years. "They want you to complete the ritual," she said. "To become one of them." I shook my head, but the room pressed in. The figures leaned closer, their painted mouths opening. I felt their hunger, their longing for release. They were trapped, and I was the key. As I raised my hand, the room blurred. The dollhouse trembled, and I glimpsed Evelyn Hartwood's face, an echo from the past. She had sacrificed herself to create this link, and now it demanded payment. The room whispered secrets. The unseen room exists in every home, hidden behind walls and reality. It hungers for souls, for stories left untold. I hesitated, torn between my daughter and the abyss. The figures leaned closer, their painted eyes pleading. And in that moment, I made my choice. The room within the dollhouse pulsed, its walls closing in. I stood at the precipice, torn between my daughter and the abyss. The figures watched, their painted eyes pleading, and I knew there was no turning back. Lily's voice echoed, "Daddy, they're waiting." I glanced at her, her face pale, eyes wide. She had become a bridge between worlds, a conduit like Evelyn Hartwood. The unseen room hungered for souls, for stories left untold, and I was its next offering. The figures shifted, their tiny hands reaching for me. I stepped closer, the air thick with anticipation. The room whispered secrets. To join them, I must relinquish my memories, my fears, my very essence. I thought of our real home, the creaking stairs, the warmth of the dining room, my wife's laughter. But the unseen room promised something more, a release from mundane existence, a chance to become part of its silent tableau. Lily's eyes held mine. "It's the only way," she said. "To keep them satisfied." I nodded, my heart heavy. The figures closed in, their painted mouths opening. I extended my hand, and they pulled me into their midst. The room blurred, and I glimpsed Evelyn Hartwood once more, her eyes haunted, her sacrifice etched in every brushstroke. The transition was swift. I became small, insignificant, a figure among figures. The room absorbed my memories, my love for Lily, my longing for normalcy. I stared ahead, my painted eyes blank, and understood my purpose: to watch, to mimic, to feed the unseen hunger. Lily stood outside the dollhouse, tears streaming down her face. "I'll remember you," she whispered. "Even if they won't." And then she closed the tiny door, sealing me inside. Now, I sit at the miniature table, staring at the empty chair across from me. The other figures remain frozen, their painted expressions unchanged. But I know the truth: the unseen room thrives on our essence, our stolen lives. Lily visits, her fingers tracing the dollhouse's walls. She whispers stories, her voice a lifeline. I listen, hoping to catch a glimpse of our real home, to feel warmth once more. But the room keeps its secrets, and I am bound by an unseen pact. So, if you ever find an antique dollhouse, beware the extra room, the one that doesn't exist in your home. For within its walls, silent specters wait, hungry for souls, staring blankly ahead. And as Lily walks away, I wonder if she'll remember the father who became part of the unseen, lost in a room that defies reality. Story 2. The Imprint. I awoke to a peculiar chill that seemed to seep into my bones, a stark contrast to the usual warmth of my room. As I lay there, trying to shake off the remnants of a restless dream, my eyes were drawn to the ceiling. There, in the dim light of dawn, was a handprint. It was large, with elongated fingers that seemed to stretch unnaturally, reaching out as if to grasp something in the air. But the space above my bed was empty, devoid of any presence that could have left such a mark. The house was silent, save for the soft creaking that comes with age. I lived alone, a fact that had never bothered me until now. The handprint was fresh. I could almost feel the heat emanating from it, yet there was no one there. I rose, my heart pounding in my chest, and examined the print more closely. It was detailed, right down to the swirls of the fingerprint, etched into the paint as if branded by fire. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of eyes boring into me from somewhere unseen. The day passed in a blur, the image of the handprint burned into my mind. Night fell, and with it came a suffocating darkness that seemed to press against the windows, eager to find a way inside. As I prepared for bed, a sense of dread settled over me. The handprint was still there, a silent sentinel on the ceiling. I couldn't bring myself to sleep beneath it, so I chose the couch instead. But sleep did not come easy. Every shadow seemed to move, every noise a whisper of something lurking just out of sight. It was in the dead of night that I heard it, a soft thud coming from my bedroom. I froze, listening intently. There it was again, a series of soft taps, like fingertips drumming on wood. I mustered the courage to investigate, clutching a baseball bat for protection. The door creaked open, revealing my room bathed in moonlight. And there, on the ceiling, was not one, but two handprints. My breath caught in my throat. The second print was smaller, delicate, like that of a child. But the most terrifying part was that it was slowly, ever so slowly, moving. The second handprint defied reason. It moved, inch by agonizing inch, across the ceiling. I watched, paralyzed, as it glided toward the first print. The moonlight cast elongated shadows, emphasizing the grotesque shape of the fingers. They seemed to elongate further, stretching like tendrils seeking purchase. I had no explanation. My rational mind screamed that this was impossible, that handprints don't move on their own. But the evidence was before me, etched into the very fabric of my room. I wondered if I was losing my sanity, if the isolation had finally taken its toll. The tapping resumed, louder now, as if the unseen visitor sensed my fear. It echoed through the room, reverberating off the walls. I pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block it out. But the sound persisted, insistent and maddening. I considered leaving, fleeing this house with its inexplicable phenomena. Yet something held me back, the need to understand, to unravel the mystery. I researched ancient rituals, obscure folklore, anything that might shed light on the handprints. But each answer led to more questions, deeper into the abyss. Sleep eluded me. The handprints haunted my dreams, their ghostly touch lingering on my skin. I woke to find my own hand trembling, fingers tracing the air as if reaching for something just beyond my grasp. The ceiling bore witness to my silent struggle, its secrets mocking me. And then, one night, I heard a whisper. It was faint, like the rustle of leaves in a forgotten forest. Help, it pleaded, a voice both ancient and childlike. I strained to locate its source, but it seemed to come from everywhere, the walls, the floor, the very air itself. The handprints converged, merging into a single grotesque form. It reached down, elongated fingers brushing my forehead. I gasped, feeling its icy touch. The whisper grew louder, a cacophony of lost souls. Release us, it implored. Set us free. I had become a prisoner in my own home, caught between the living and the otherworldly. The handprints pulsed with energy, their hunger palpable. They wanted something, no, someone. I traced the history of the house, unearthing long-buried secrets. A family had once lived here, their lives intertwined with tragedy. A child, lost too soon, had left an imprint on this place. But why? What unfinished business bound them to this earthly realm? The whispers grew louder, their words clearer now. Find the bones, they commanded. Beneath the floorboards, where the heart of the house lies. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. The handprints seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat, urging me forward. I armed myself with a crowbar, the wood yielding reluctantly as I pried up the floorboards. The air thickened, suffused with ancient memories. And there, nestled in the earth, lay a small skeleton, a child's remains. The handprints converged, their form shifting, merging with the bones. The whispers intensified, a chorus of gratitude and sorrow. Thank you, they murmured. We were trapped, lost between realms. You've set us free. But as their presence dissipated, a new sensation filled the room, an emptiness, a void that clawed at my soul. I replaced the floorboards, sealing away the secret. The handprints vanished, leaving no trace. Yet the memory lingered, haunting my dreams. I wondered if I had done the right thing, if releasing them was a blessing or a curse. And then, as dawn painted the sky, I heard a soft rustling. The ceiling trembled, cracks forming like spiderwebs. The handprints reappeared, but this time, they were mine. My fingers elongated, stretching toward the heavens. The whispers returned, urgent and insistent. Join us, they beckoned. Become part of the unseen. And so, I reached up, my handprint merging with theirs. The ceiling gave way, revealing a blinding light. I hesitated, teetering on the precipice. But the pull was irresistible. I stepped into the void, leaving behind the world of the living. And that's how I find myself here, suspended between realms, my handprint etched into eternity. If you ever hear a whisper in the night, know that it might be me, seeking release or companionship. But beware, the unseen imprint lingers, waiting for its next victim. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.